Zach, we are back and we are talking our my guys for the 2024 Dynasty Fantasy Football season, putting our flag on these guys that we believe to either be very high-end producers, great values, just great Dynasty assets to have. We hope you guys enjoy the video. Please leave a like if you do. Comment down below. We want to hear your my guys out there. We want to see you in the Patreon Discord, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Get in there, talk all about your my guys, how you're buying, and or how you got them on your roster. If they're already on your roster, you don't need to go buy them. That's a good rule of thumb to follow. But with all that said, Zach, all the promo in the books, let's get to the content that people came for. Getting into your first my guy, we talked about him last week. It's not overkill to have him in here because it's a good pick, Zach. What do you got for your first my guy of 2024?
Yeah, I had to ask you permission, man, because I can't stop talking about this guy. I'm like gushing. I'm like, oh man, give me some more Isiah Pacheco. As we get closer to the season, Bob, I cannot quit Isiah Pacheco. I want more and more and more shares of this guy. I'm so happy in places that I already had him. But man, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's getting harder to buy. And I saw on Dynasty Daddy some of these deals that we'll talk about in just a second. I was like, ooh, I don't know, man. Because again, sometimes I love players because of the value. Look, let's talk about him, X's and O's, Y's on the field. Probably locked down into a 3-down role. Do I feel confident that Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Deneric Prince, or Carson Steele are gonna steal 3rd-down reps from him? No, I don't. I don't feel that that's the case. Maybe they split a 3rd-down role. I don't know. But what I saw from last year was the Chiefs integrate Isiah Pacheco more into the passing game as the season went on. And also, he's really good at picking up the blitz. So, what reason is there to take him off the field other than extending his quality of life in terms of the football on the football field? You know, there is no reason. He's very good at everything. As a matter of fact, according to PFF, he was one of the highest graded 2-down running backs last year. He saw 18.1 opportunities a game and averaged 4.6 yards per carry. Running back 9 in fantasy points per game from weeks 3 to 13. So the bulk of your regular season last year. And then I know he was even better during the playoff stretch. I want running backs on elite offenses, Bob, and he's probably still a little bit cheaper than he should be. So here's some recent trades on Dynasty Daddy. Here's the cost of what it costs to acquire Isiah Pacheco. I saw Isiah Pacheco for Jordan Addison. Sign me up. I'll do that all day. You know, anytime I see Jordan Addison on Dynasty Daddy, I'm like, yeah, I'll trade him for that. I did see some 25 first, and look, I don't love that because right now on paper, there's a lot of good running backs next year. So I'm trying to get away with an Isiah Pacheco trade with anything else other than a 1st-round pick. I'm trying to be real with you. It's probably still a good trade if you do. I don't want to do that. I just don't love giving away my 1st-round pick unless it's like an elite level player, a Justin Jefferson, a Jamar Chase, Dalton Kincaid. I don't want to give away my 1st-round picks unless they are elite level players that are in secure positions. Unfortunately, Isiah Pacheco is still a day 3 running back, and they could bring somebody in whenever they want to compete and take touches away. I don't see it happening, but the reality of the situation is there is no security in Isiah Pacheco. Therefore, a 1st-round pick, I don't feel comfortable doing. And then I saw Calvin Ridley and Braylon Allen for Isiah Pacheco. I would do that. Signed, sealed, delivered. Give me all the Isiah Pacheco shares I can possibly have. It's a starting running back I feel good about every week. I plug and play. I don't think about it. Isiah Pacheco, I think, is in for a top 10 fantasy season, and that's why I had to have him on this My Guy list, Bob.
Zach, I am very much in with you on the Isiah Pacheco train. I noted it in last week's video. He is still in my top 10 running back projections for 2024. I 100% agree. I think he's going to get the receiving work. I think he's going to get the rushing work. Not a ton of reason to take him off the field. Yes, I think other backs are going to get work, but as much as we like to, throw out day 3 running back, could be replaced, they haven't replaced him, and they've had opportunity. It's not like they're not sitting around with picks where running backs are good and they could pick somebody up. They just don't. I think they're just good with Isiah Pacheco. They love that they hit on this guy late, and they're just going to run with it, full pun intended. So I'm all about going and getting Isiah Pacheco on my roster. I definitely get the concern with moving 25 first, but if you don't want to move a first, finding players around that value. I know we've thrown out Jaden Reed a lot in that value range of like that late first, early second type range. And I don't want to go and throw Jaden Reed around to trade him because I like Jaden Reed a lot. I like him as a prospect. You get it. But if you need running back help, if you need a really, really good running back 2 on your roster, not one of the elite top 5 or 6 guys, I'm happy to make that move as a competitive roster. But otherwise, your deals here, Jordan Addison, known Jordan Addison hater, certainly not a my guy on this channel for you or I, but getting into another player that is 100% a my guy, has been since I first turned on his film last year as a rookie, Dalton Kincaid. I can't get enough. I have him in 2-3 leagues, and it's not enough. I want him in more. So reason being, he's set up to be the #1 receiving target in this offense. Do I really need to say more than that? Because at the end of the day, Keon Coleman is a day 2 rookie who will ultimately get his. But if Coleman is going to reach the potential everyone hopes for Keon Coleman and hits his upside, I really don't expect to see that year 1. I think he's got some development to do. Curtis Samuel dealing with turf toe, which is one of the roughest injuries because it lingers and heavily hampers a wide receiver's burst off the line. He's expected to be healthy for week 1, but I would not expect him to be 100% healthy. And on top of that, he's never garnered a wide receiver 1 or receiver 1 target share. Anyway, I like Curtis Samuel in this offense. I think he can produce, but needs to get healthy and ultimately stay on the field, which Curtis Samuel also hasn't been the healthiest player in his career. Looking again at Dalton Kincaid, 101 targets in his 18 games last season, only 3 touchdowns to show for it. And this is a very low touchdown percentage for a tight end. This is kind of a, where they call it a fluky number, just not getting a ton of touchdowns for how many targets he had. And I'm projecting him to be a top 5 target getter at the tight end position this year in my projections. You can find those patreon.com/Dynasty in that gold tier. He's currently my tight end 3 in my 2024 projections, behind only Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. And honestly, Travis Kelce, I could see, that decline has to come at some point. I'm not going to put it in my projections. I'm not going to try to project it at this point because dude's already an alien. So whatever it is. But looking at costs, some completed trades for Dalton Kincaid. Guys, I'm very comfortable moving: T. Higgins, Kenneth Walker, and then, of course, another one, Jaden Reed plus Greg Dulcich. I think it's always hard talking about moving a running back for a tight end and not getting a plus back, because unless it's a tight end premium, which this was not, this was just a bog standard league. Looking at team trajectory wise, how I figure a team with Dalton Kincaid, a team with Kenneth Walker is, I expect them to either be both competitive or the team selling Kenneth Walker to no longer want to be competitive. And if that's the case and you're selling Dalton Kincaid, I hope you have somebody else in your roster that could be a solid tight end for you. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Either way, but I like these values, and I think Dalton Kincaid is getting expensive, and he's only going to get more expensive. But possibly, I shouldn't say that. He's tight end 3 on Keep Trade Cut, so he can't get too much more expensive. He's not Sam Laporta expensive yet. So if you're balling on a budget, you want a #1 receiving target in an offense. For Josh Allen, I think Dalton Kincaid is a great get. He's obviously the only tight end who's the #1 receiving target in a Josh Allen offense. But Zach, tell me if you're in or out on Dalton Kincaid as a my guy. Like I said, I've loved him since he's been a prospect, and he's done nothing to really disappoint me to this point, outside of a low touchdown rate. But hey, touchdowns are fluky. We know that. What do you think on Dalton Kincaid?
I just want to ask you this one question, then I want to move on, because I am a Dalton Kincaid fan. I'm still a little worried about the situation because Dawson Knox is there, and they love to run the 2 wide receiver sets. I'm not saying I think easily top 10 tight end. I have a hard time with like tight end 3 or 4, maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe 8. Maybe he ramps up to that next year. But like, again, that offense likes to run 2 tight ends, and Dawson Knox is still there, and he's a competent, safe, good tight end that they invested a lot of money in. They're not just going to not use him, So are you a little worried about that?
I can't say I am. Honestly, I mean, last year was Dawson Knox's worst season in the last 3 years. I know he's banged up too, so there's that. I'm not here to say Dawson Knox is a bad tight end either. I think he's a very competent tight end. I don't think they're just going to throw him to the curb and never use him again. But nothing about Dawson Knox in his career, his college profile, has ever made me think, man, this guy is a major tight end player in the league. I don't think Dalton Kincaid was drafted in the 1st round. And to me, that's as good as any penny that they put into Dawson Knox. And anything that Dalton Kincaid was kind of, fell short on last year compared to Dawson Knox. I'm chalking up to Dalton Kincaid being a rookie, and we know tight end is one of the hardest positions to kind of figure out because you're involved in blocking schemes more than any other position. This, that, and the other thing. There's a lot going on learning the tight end position. So I maybe that's like short-sighted, long-sighted, hopium, whatever, that I'm just not worried about Dawson Knox. Like, I get it. They like to run the 2 tight end sets. I'm just not worried. I mean, you look at Dalton Kincaid's target share last year, 17.68% on the season. That's adjusted to factor in injuries for every player. Dawson Knox last year, 8.55%. So about half of the target share. And that's, again, extrapolated. If Dawson Knox played a healthy season compared to Dalton Kincaid's healthy season, that's what their target shares would end up being. So I'm just not worried. Maybe he limits the ceiling a little bit, but I don't know, man. I'm still just all about Dalton Kincaid and other things with Dalton Kincaid last year. That was kind of fluky. Yards per reception was pretty down for a tight end. So if that pops up at all, and I mean, his reception percentage, 80% last year, which is just crazy numbers. So, I mean, maybe that comes down, but I expect more targets. So, and more yards per reception. So I think overall, I think we end up with a really good season out of Dalton Kincaid. I do think he does need to get some touchdown luck. That's paramount. But if this team wants to win games and score points, Dalton Kincaid's going to have to get touchdowns. So to your point, I get it. I get the concern, but it doesn't concern me, I guess.
And about the touchdowns, real quick, Dawson Knox in the last 3 seasons has the 3rd most red zone touchdowns behind Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. I don't know how that stat, splits into just last year, but obviously your concerns is something that Dawson Knox has been heavily featured. So look, I'm not off Dalton Kincaid. I love Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah.
Love. I'm just not at the top 5 ceiling this season. It could happen. But if I have Dalton Kincaid, I'm not projecting it. But I do think he could be easily a tight end 1, top 10, top 8 tight end. I can't see a tight end 3, 4, 5 because I think Dawson Knox just takes away a little bit from Dalton Kincaid. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I get it. I think what you want, where you're at is you're happy having Dalton Kincaid. You're happy with what you're going to get more than likely. You just don't want to necessarily buy him at this ceiling price that we have, which is, listed at tight end 3 on Keep Trade Cut.
Yeah, that's exactly, that's a perfect description. I'm very happy, and I want to have shares of Dalton Kincaid. I want to. Like, I have no problem with him being on this list. I'm just about managing expectations, and I'm not expecting a top 5 season. That's all. Sure. My second guy, finally, I can believe in this guy. It's been forever since I've been able to believe in this guy, Bob. Maybe it's just the scorn lover Dolphins fan in me where quarterbacks come and go and just break my heart every year. But my second guy is going to be Tua Tagovailoa. It's been hard for me to believe in Tua. Not because I don't think he's talented, but I'm talking about the dynasty outlook. And me personally, if I was Dolphins, I would not have given that contract. That's a whole nother discussion for a whole nother day. I'm fine that they did it. I'm happy to be secure in our quarterback future. But I would have wanted to see a couple more things on the field, like being able to extend plays, being able to do what Patrick Mahomes or Brock Purdy were able to do in the Super Bowl, and just make plays. I haven't really seen that from Tua. But nonetheless, the Dolphins have invested in Tua. And when an organization invests in a player, that gives me the green light to invest in the player. Because if I'm spending big assets or believing in somebody or counting on them for big production, I need to know that the organization does. And so for me, Tua Tagovailoa is finally a quarterback I feel happy drafting, trading for, acquiring, starting. I was just never secure in, hey, is he going to be here after his rookie contract? I don't know that. And now you do. We've seen the Dolphins put their money where their mouth is, Bob. They invested in Tua. They gave him money. They gave him years. There's no reason for me to not believe in it anymore. And not only that, the same system is there. The same offense is there. The same players are there. And if anything, that offense is evolving and growing. They've added a tight end, Jonnu Smith, which I actually feel really good about. They've added more running backs, more wide receivers, Odell Beckham, Malik Washington. You've had other wide receivers that are now in the system for a second season. The system isn't going anywhere. And like I said, it's growing, it's getting better, and it's adding different pieces to make Tua a better quarterback. He was quarterback 9 last year with room to grow. And I just don't see any reason why he's not a top 10 quarterback this season and moving forward. And look, I'm not saying that he's an elite NFL quarterback. I'm just saying in the system that he's in, with the players that he's surrounded with, nothing's changed for Tua except that the team said, we believe in you. Here's $200 million or whatever it was. Okay. So I just like, how could you regress in the same offense, the same players, the same strengths, the same, like you've now improved on your weaknesses. They gave up a lot on defense to improve on offense. So, and they did lose some 1 or 2 starters on that O-line, but you know, that system is not predicated on Tua sitting there 4 or 5 seconds in the pocket trying to, you know, look at his 3rd or 4th read. It's boom, 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 get the ball out. So I can't find a reason why Tua isn't quarterback 9 or better as a fantasy quarterback. And so I'm finally okay with investing. And I think when we look back a year from now, Bob, I don't know if necessarily he'll be a top 5 quarterback in fantasy. Can he be better than quarterback 9? Yes. But he can also be quarterback 9 and score more points than he did last year, because there was a couple of quarterbacks that didn't really play the full season last year. So I finally feel good investing into it, and I believe that this season he's going to have a better season than he did last year. And so I'm comfortable acquiring. What did it take to acquire? I looked on Dynasty Daddy. I saw a trade. Jonathan Taylor straight up for Tua Tagovailoa. Sign me up for that, please. Please let me get a running back with injury concerns off my roster for a quarterback that I can probably start for the next 5 years at this point. And then I saw another trade of somebody trading Trevor Lawrence and a 3rd-round pick for Tua Tagovailoa. I don't hate Trevor Lawrence. I'm fine with Trevor Lawrence. It's just like we haven't really seen it yet from Trevor Lawrence, and we have seen it from Tua. Whether or not he had a bad December or a bad playoffs, whatever, we have seen him be, fantasy speaking, very good, and there's no reason why we can't project a young player to get better. So I got Tua on this list, and it feels good to have him on this list because it's just a player like I've really not wanted any part of, and for the first time ever, I feel comfortable having him on my roster, advocating for him, putting him in my starting lineup, acquiring or drafting in startup drafts.
I love this, Zach, and I feel you, because when Tua came out and had his first few seasons or first couple seasons, whatever, and struggled, was really not good. I was one of the biggest Tua haters there are, and now he's one of my most rostered quarterbacks because the system that's in place, Mike McDaniel, the pieces around him are excellent. All around him, the O-line, like you said, has lost some pieces, defense lost some pieces as well, but everything is intact for Tua to have another great year, and I'm excited to have him in my lineups. I'd love to go find more ways to get him. Talking about not being an elite quarterback, fine. There's about 10 quarterbacks range from quarterback 6 to 10 that are just, or I'm sorry, 6 to 15 in quarterback rankings, quote unquote, that are just really freaking good. And Tua Tagovailoa, one of them, still accessible for whatever reason. I'm all about it. And I'm all about this next player in a new system, Chris Olave. And I know you love Chris Olave too, Zach. I had to get him on the show sheet first because otherwise,
let's go. I love your list, man.
I know. It's a good list. So Chris Olave, reasons to love Chris Olave this year. We got a new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak, coming to town. He's noted in interviews that he wants to use Chris Olave in more ways and put him in more favorable situations. So looking at Clint Kubiak, what he is, what he does, some of his history. He's a passing game specialist for the 49ers in 2023, and I think we could see a lot of the same concepts we saw that came with Brandon Ayuk. We saw him thrive with, kind of break out with, albeit we have a lesser quarterback in Derek Carr, definitely over the hill as opposed to Brock Purdy, who's still probably ascending as a talent in this league more than likely. So either way, we should see some better concepts, and I'd expect a much more modern system per Nick Underhill. The 49ers ran 753 plays with pre-snap motion, while the Saints only ran 366. This is an archaic offense, one of the least plays run with motion in the pre-snap by a team. So this is rough. We're going to see a much more modernized offense. It's much more exciting. This, with having these pre-snap motion before a play leads to more explosive plays, leads to more misdirection, opening up players, making players' lives easier. It's that whole concept of, building a system around the tools you have and utilizing Chris Olave in better ways than just having him run straight downfield, speed downfield, burn downfield, and go get a long ball. They're going to use Chris Olave in a lot of exciting ways. Chris Olave gets another offseason with Derek Carr. I think over the course of the season last year, we saw a little bit more of a continuity forming with those two, that, kind of getting a little more in rhythm. I think we saw that down the stretch. And again, no one is going to threaten Chris Olave's elite target share besides Alvin Kamara and Rashid Shaheed. I like Alvin Kamara a good bit. He's a great pass catching back. I think a great discount back to go get. Rashid Shaheed is somebody who definitely grew on me diving into my 2024 projections. I think I have him in a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4 range, which I don't think anybody has him projected to do that much, but I guess I do. So I like him a good bit, but nobody is coming for Chris Olave's target share. Cost to go get him, looking at recent trades: Michael Pittman plus Travis Etienne, Rome Odunze. Rome Odunze is one. You talked about it in our Moves to Make video earlier this week. As much as we like the guy, Rome Odunze is the third receiving target on this offense. At best at this point, I assume he is going to be a third receiving option. But unless you're, again, banking on an injury, which I don't like to do personally, Rome Odunze is probably the third receiving option in this offense. I'll gladly trade him for points now with Chris Olave in most situations. Travis Etienne is a tough one. I don't know if I want to move off of him outside of just to get a more secure position. Maybe I have two really good running backs already. Like Bijan is my running back 1. Travis Etienne is my running back 2. Let me pivot off of some of this running back heavy build I have and invest in a more longer term option, being Chris Olave. Michael Pittman plus going up to go get Chris Olave, I'm a fan of. And depending on who you talk to, I don't think you need as much with that plus, especially if we see a decent start to the season from Michael Pittman. But it might be too late at that point to go get Chris Olave with how I think he's going to pop in this system. So, Zach, I'd love to hear your thoughts before you dive into your next one.
Yeah, I'm all about Chris Olave. I love that he's on your list. I love that in your projections he's where he's at. I'm excited about it. And yeah, I mean, everything that, the moves that team made in the offseason, they didn't really add very much at wide receiver. Like, it's Cedric Wilson, Bub Means. They didn't really do much. They didn't. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Cedric Wilson, a little sneaky wide receiver 3 there, by the way.
I know. I agree.
Yeah. There's a lot of wide receiver 3s that people aren't talking about. But nonetheless, love this. I think you're going to have a little trouble with that Rome Odunze trade. I don't know if the other person is going to want to do that.
Really?
It depends. There people, there's either the on Chris Olave people or the off Chris Olave people. Like, it depends which one you get, right? So those other trades, I think they make sense and they're pretty fair. But let me get to my guy. And man, I don't understand. I get it. He's a little older, but I got Evan Engram on my guy list. And again, with everything I do, it's about the cost. And right now, Evan Engram on Keep Trade Cut is tight end 10. On DLF, he's tight end 11. And it makes 0 sense. He finished as tight end 6 in 2022, tight end 2 in 2023. I don't understand these rankings. I get it. He's older. I get it. I understand. That just doesn't make sense to me. 30 years old for a tight end is nothing. This isn't running back 30. This is like running back 23, Tight end being 30 years old means nothing. We've seen like so many tight ends be relevant for 5 or 6 more years after 30 years old. So like him being 30 doesn't bother me at all. Let's just go to his last preseason game, week 3 for the Jags. Played in 2 drives, all with the starters, Bob. 4 targets, 4 receptions, 28 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Stud.
2 touchdowns in 2 drives. Had 143 targets in 2023, the 12th most targeted player and the most targeted tight end. Only 4 touchdowns last year. Very banged up Trevor Lawrence, though, last year. So I just don't see any reason that can't be 6, 7. What if it's 8 or 9? I mean, how much higher does that make Evan Engram? So I just bought Evan Engram in a start 2 tight end premium league, half-point tight end premium league. I bought Evan Engram and a 25 third for Isaiah Likely and Jaden Reed. Start 2. You got to start 2 tight ends, Bob. You got to have 2 tight ends. Yeah. Jaden Reed, look, I like Jaden Reed, but I like winning too, and it's a very muddled wide receiver room. I'm not off Jaden Reed. I'm off if I can get Evan Engram in the start 2 tight end league. So look, these rankings, I understand I understand the way that we go about it, but I don't live by Dynasty Rankings to do my processes. I go off of usage, offensive systems, so on and so forth, and everything says that Evan Engram should still be a top 5 tight end. Can I say he's tight end 2? No, but I don't see any reason he's not a top 5 tight end. I still think he's going to be very heavily targeted. Christian Kirk can never stay healthy, by the way. Like, he's banged up as we speak. I'm not making that up. That's actually fact. And Brian Thomas is a developing rookie. I just don't see any reason why he's not still a top 5 tight end. And Trevor Lawrence's best friend when they get inside the red zone this year.
But do they get breakfast together? That's the question mark we have to ask, Zach. But I'm in agreement here. I like Evan Engram a good bit, all jokes aside. I do have him at tight end 10 in my projections, just for fun sharing. However, he is in tier 4, which ranges from tight end 5 to tight end 10. And as of now, TJ Hawkinson in points per game is in that range as well. And he's obviously going to fall out. So Evan Engram, still a top 10 producer, and that is with a pretty rough touchdown line for him. I am at 4.61 in my projections. Like you noted, I could definitely see that being higher just based on everything that we've seen. I do have mild concerns with the mouths defeating that offense, because when you invest in a wide receiver like the Jags did with Brian Thomas Jr. in the first round, they want to get him involved. They have these other wideouts they want to get involved. They bring in Gabe Davis, who is going to get an annoying amount of target share, not a league-winning amount by any stretch, but just enough to kind of be annoying. I don't hate this, though. I still like the value. That's just where some of my concerns lie. But I 100% lock him at a top 10. And at the cost you're getting him at, you're not paying top 10 prices for Evan Engram. Definitely a guy I would want to go get. With that said, I'll move right on into my last one, Zach. I know we both love this guy too. Kyren Williams, a guy we will just pound the table for till it's dead in the ground. Kyren Williams, not your typical day 3 running back, 20+ points per game in PPR scoring in 2023. These players stick around. These are your top elite running backs that don't go away. And when you look at every efficiency and total metric that matters for running backs, he's top 10, top 5 in some. Kyren Williams, if you looked at him and you looked at this offense with him and it was mid, or his production was mid, or his efficiency was mid, fine, you'd have a case. But at this point, Kyren Williams, here to stay, here to produce, here to be an elite asset in your lineup. Blake Corum was brought in to spell Kyren Williams and hopefully help him be healthier, not to replace him. I think somebody like Zach Charbonnet coming in with Kenneth Walker. I will make a note here. I do want to make a move to add Blake Corum if I have Kyren Williams, or if I go buy Kyren Williams, just to secure this backfield, protect my investment that little bit. There's something else we definitely know about Kyren Williams, and that's that he does have the downside of his health not always being elite. But hey, hopefully with a little less, thrust into the line here and there and a little less run, maybe we can still see a very efficient Kyren Williams. So still locked into an experienced and hopefully potent Rams offense with a coaching staff that loves him and continues to rave about him week in, week out in every interview. He's locked in as a running back 1 for me in my 2024 projections. Looking at values around Kyren Williams right now, blows me away. Tank Dell, somebody I will sell in a heartbeat for Kyren Williams. Brian Thomas Jr., as much as I see the upside, I like Brian Thomas Jr. I think he does ascend to be probably the wide receiver 1 in this offense at some point, or a very, wide receiver 1A, 1B type scenario, but I project wide receiver 1 at some point. I think the Jags are kind of hoping for that as well. George Pickens somehow around Kyren Williams' value. If you need to add a little bit to any of these guys to get a deal done, more than happy to do so. If you need to tier up from, running backs like you touched on Trey Benson being a top 15 or top 17 dynasty running back. If you want to tier up from him, more than happy to do so. Any of those running backs are mid. If you don't have any of those running backs that are mid, if you don't have a top tier producing running back and you're going into your season with Tyjae Spears, Trey Benson, insert top 20 but not top 10 running back name here, add something to that running back, go get Kyren Williams. He is going to do you wonders in your lineup, especially if you spend that second round pick to go get Blake Corum and a third round pick as well next year. So, Zach, feel free to add on to Kyren Williams before we get the heck on out of here.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And look, here's the one thing I want to say about the addition of Blake Corum is, first of all, I'm happy they added somebody relevant as opposed to Ronnie Rivers and Royce Freeman and nobody that they will actually feel confident giving Kyren Williams a little bit of a rest. Because if I can get 75 to 80% of the production, but for 15 to 16 games, I'd prefer that over 12 games, but having to find someone else to fill in 4 or 5 games that he's not going to be there. I'd prefer that. Also, 100% agree. I'm trying to get Blake Corum in situations where it's plausible, but some people have this inflated Nate philosophy that Blake Corum is the new RB1. So I'm like, okay, you enjoy that. In week 7, hit me up when you're selling low because you're being ridiculous. The last thing is on keep trade cut, right? I go to the Dynasty running back rankings, and there's 2 running backs. First of all, Kyren Williams, running back 8. I think that's very appropriate. I think that's perfect. Like, it's not where he was before Blake Corum, which was kind of high and a little bit nuts. I will agree with Nate and Mike or whoever was saying that back then. But running back 8 feels very appropriate. I don't understand why that's so outlandish. Oh, crazy. The thing about that is there's 2 running backs ahead of him that are very much in a kind of a timeshare situation. One of them being Devon Achane is running back 6. Why is he ranked better than Kyren Williams when he's just as injured, or if not, probably more prone to injuries given his lack of size? But he's also in an offense that already had a running back 1 in Raheem Mostert and just drafted another guy in Jalen Wright. And then there's Jahmyr Gibbs, who I get Jahmyr Gibbs as a first-round pick, but David Montgomery's there, and he's not going anywhere. They're not just going to give Jahmyr Gibbs the keys to the car. Those guys are ahead of Kyren Williams, and they're kind of in the same situation where they're not necessarily the full-on running back 1. Here's 90% of our workload, but here's 60 to 70% maybe. And even Devon Achane has probably less because I don't necessarily see him taking all of Raheem Mostert's work. Maybe it's a 50-50 split. But so those 2 guys ahead of Kyren Williams, I'll be honest with you. I'll take Kyren Williams at running back 8 over Jahmyr Gibbs at running back 4. And I'll take Kyren Williams at running back 8 over Devon Achane at running back 6. So this feels very appropriate, the value that Kyren Williams is now as opposed to where it was a few months ago.
Yeah, and you have to pay significantly less, which is what you're saying, to get Kyren versus Jahmyr Gibbs. And I get the ranking. I'm in agreement having Gibbs over Williams in a nutshell. Devon Achane, I get a little turned around with that because I'm with you as well. I don't see him being the primary ball carrier in that backfield. And that's not a bad thing. I think that's, kind of good with Kyren too, getting somebody to spell him, take work away, let Achane work in, very efficient ways, not as efficient as what he was last year, because it's just not sustainable, in my opinion, at least. Who knows? Maybe he'll prove us wrong. Definitely love Kyren Williams. Definitely love going to get him on my roster, Zach. And this was our My Guys. We want to hear your My Guys down in the comments below. Let us know if you liked the video by liking it, commenting, as I mentioned before. And we want to see you over the Patreon Discord. Get in there for the regular season hype train. It's a madhouse in there. I'll be frank with you. It gets a little crazy during the regular season, and that's okay. We want to see you in that madhouse. But with all that said, we are going to get the heck on out of here. We'll see you in the next one. But until then, I hope that y'all have a good one.